Okay, so we continue with the very relevant shaila for many of us, which is making kiddush Shabbos morning and making havdalah on Chamer Medina, on whiskey. We're going to see this week coffee, tea, milk. When is one allowed to, if ever, lechatchila, make Shabbos day kiddush and the havdalah on beer, and when must it be wine? And we spoke out last week that Friday night kiddush for sure has to be on wine. That's not a shaila. And if you don't have wine, you make it on the challah. You make it on the bread that you have. So that's Friday night. But Shabbos day is the Rabbanon, and havdalah we'll see this week in Rabbi Schreck. Havdalah is fundamentally different than kiddush vis-a-vis the relationship of the bracha to the wine. So we'll see what comes out. That's the shaila. And we'll see how we come out. So page 1 is pretty much a review from the poskim that we saw last week, which was the Mishnah Berurah, the Rabbi Schreck, and Rav Moshe. And this week we're going to see a couple of Chuvas van Hagos from Moshe Sternbach and a Shevet Halevi, and then a very interesting correspondence, if there's time, between Reb Chaim Kanievsky and his father-in-law, Rabbi Yosef. So we start with number 1. So the Mishnah Berurah we saw last week says, now again, let me just backtrack for the people who weren't here last week. The Mechaber Paskins, basically the Gemara in Pesachim Daf Kuf Zayin, that if there's no wine available for like the entire year in that town, then you can make Kiddush Shabbos day on Chamer Medina. And the same thing, the Mechaber Paskins in the Hilchos Havdalah, the same thing. When there's no wine available. So the Mishnah writes over here, in our country where the wine is expensive, and the majority of drinking in this country, I guess in Russia, was shar mashkin, was beer, was whiskey. Even the gedolim in Russia did not go for wine. They would make their kiddush on shar mashkin. Mishmur says, but it's definitely better to make kiddush by day on wine. Right? So wine over beer, it should be wine. It's a mitzvah min hamuch. But then comes Sifkat Lamed, this is Siman Reish Ayin Beis. Comes Sifkat Lamed, and it is extremely relevant. He says like this, but let's say you like whiskey better than wine. Im chaviv lo yayin saruf, yochel kadosh olav biyoyim lechatchila. You can mekadosh in the yayin saruf in the daytime. That's lechatchila. So if you like it, if it's Chamer Medina because everyone is drinking it, and you like it better than wine, so then it's lechatchila. Shabbos day you can make kiddush on whiskey, but here's the catch. There's a catch. Actually, zahar likach kois machzik revius. Your cup has to hold the revius, which is at least 3.3 ounces. The lishto is imenu maloi lugma shuroi revius. You have to make sure you drink around 1.7 ounces, the majority of that revius. He goes on to say that with the eved, you can split that among everyone who's being yoytz with the kiddush, but if you're a lechatchila dikayid, which we should all be, lechatchila dikayid, so then you can make, according to the Mishnah Berurah, you can make kiddush, at least we'll see, it's at least in Russia in the early 20th century, you can make kiddush lechatchila Shabbos day on whiskey. It's 100% lechatchila. That's what the Mishnah Berurah said. Okay, we come to the Aruch HaShulchan number 2, and the minhag also in Lithuania, in Russia, the Aruch HaShulchan was also everyone made kiddush on other mashkim. He talks about milk and tea. They're making kiddush and havdalah Shabbos day, and havdalah on milk and tea. And he goes through all the different svaras. He brings some of the svaras the Mishnah brings also. But the Aruch HaShulchan writes, Umnam kol ha'tainim ein miskablen al halei. The Aruch HaShulchan is not happy with the reasons. And he offers a reason why the Olam is making havdalah on milk and tea and kiddush Shabbos morning on beer and whiskey. And he says because they didn't have wine in the Rishonim's times, they lived more in like Central Europe, I guess you would say, not so far north. And there they had vineyards, but far north in Eastern Europe, they had no access to homegrown wine. They didn't make any wine locally. The imported stuff, guess what, had a bad hashkacha. It wasn't a good hechsher. It's not a new thing. It always existed, bad hashkachas. So it wasn't a good hechsher. and they can't really get wine. So Friday night, kind of our hands are tied. But Shabbos day, and for Havdalah, where it's hard to have whiskey at night, that's what Shulchan writes. So the Olam is makel on milk and tea. The Aruch Shulchan writes that it's not Chomer Medina because no one's really drinking during the week tea and milk. That's his issue with tea and milk. But it's Shas Chak, and it's called a mashke. So the evidence on a mashke, even though it's not Chomer Medina. Again, Chomer Medina is like the number one drink of choice. We'll see how Rav Moshe defines it in a second. Gives a very nice definition to it. But let's say for now, it's the number one drink of choice. He says milk and tea are not the number one drink of choice, at least not back then in Lithuania. But what can we do? We have no other choice, so therefore we do it. But at the end of the day, the Aruch Shulchan, if you ask him, I have wine, what should I make kiddush by day on? What should I make havdalah on? He would definitely say you should make havdalah on wine. So it's one of those cases, which you could say are one of the rare cases, where the Mishnah Berurah is mekel, and lichatchila you can make kiddush Shabbos day and kol shekain havdalah on whiskey if it's chavit, if you like it, which many of us like whiskey better than wine. That's the lichatchila. The only catch is you have to make sure you're drinking. You have a cup that holds a roiv revius, you're drinking a revius, or at least a roiv revius. A cup is called a revius, and you're drinking a roiv revius. The cup holds at least 3.3 ounces, and you're drinking just over 1.6 ounces. So that's what he says over here. Okay, machlokes. So let's go number 3. This we didn't see last week. There's a Magen Avraham, which will be very relevant because there's really 2 issues that we're going to discuss this week. One is what's the frequency of drinking that makes it Chomer Medina, right? What's considered, how often do I have to drink it? What is Chomer Medina? And then the different types of drinks that will fall into that category. Those are the 2 things that we're going to see this week. So the Magen Avraham says, V'nira li, de'ein makashin al yayish, you cannot make kiddush on whiskey, ela im kein b'medinas sheroiv shtiyas haman yayish, unless the majority of the drinking in that place is whiskey, b'chol yom, every day. It's a daily drink. That's what the Magen Avraham is saying. Right? So the Chomer Medina is Chomer Medina when that's the daily drink in that place, in that city, in that country, in that state, in that area. Okay? The Igros Moshe we saw last week, he comes and he gives a wonderful definition of Chomer Medina. He writes, "B'chashivas mashkehu she'ein hashtiya machmas shetzrichim lahem letzma." Right? The chashivas of Chomer Medina is that I'm not drinking it to quench my thirst. Elishoisim oisam af b'loy tzorich megufam el b'shvil kavod haseuda v'kavod ha'or. You drink it not because you need it physically. You drink it because it's an honor for the meal and it's an honor for the guests. If you come to someone's house and they offer you coffee and you don't want the coffee, would you say, I'm not thirsty, it's okay? And you wouldn't say that because no one's offering coffee and tea to quench thirst. So Rav Moshe is coming to say that soda is not Chomer Medina. Because soda is a drink that you drink to quench thirst. Whereas coffee, he doesn't have the coffee, but his milk and tea, he says, those are drinks. He says, if someone offers you milk, you're not going to say, no, it's okay, I'm not thirsty. Milk is not a drink that you drink necessarily to quench your thirst. Milk is a mechubadik drink, and tea is a mechubadik drink. So that's what Moshe's gather. It's a chashuv, a drink that a person drinks, not for a bodily need, just because the drink itself is chashuv. So we had a discussion last week, and I've been asking around since then, what's the status of soda today? Is soda a drink that you would give someone to quench their thirst? Or is soda a drink that you just mechabit someone with? So some people say, some guy was telling me he had a workman come to his office, and he offered him something to drink. If he's thirsty, he offered him a soda, or a water, or a seltzer. So this person felt that soda is offered to quench one's thirst. It definitely is, it's in the, get it in the machines. When you go to a restaurant, they have a display thing, the cold drinks, you have water, you have juice, and you have soda. So it is used to quench thirst. We came out last week that some people approach it more that, no, it's a chashuv, a drink, lavdafka, when you say, I'm not thirsty, when someone offers you a soda. That's what Moshe's gather. How to apply it, if you don't even see this. But Moshe is saying that a drink that a person drinks not to quench the thirst, that's Chomer Medina. Rav Moshe is not happy with milk and tea. He doesn't really say why he's not happy with milk. But tea, he says, it's just mayim ba'alma. In a different part of the issue that we brought last week, his issue with tea is that it's just colored water. So the Aruch HaShulchan's issue with tea and milk seemed to have been that people don't drink it so much. But he had no problem with the actual tea and milk. Rav Moshe is not into tea because it's just colored water. Be that as it may, Rav Moshe Paskins never use soda. It's not going to work at all for kiddush. Milk and tea in the shas hatchak, if you don't have anything else, you could use. And he's not getting into if you have one or don't have one. He's saying that once Chum Medina is applicable, what is considered Chum Medina? He's not handling when it's applicable, right? So the Rosh is just saying that it would come out that coffee, whiskey, beer, these are all drinks that for sure are Chum Medina. Potentially, they are Chum Medina. Milk and tea is tier 2, only b'shas and chak. And in Rav Moshe's opinion, the Metzias back then, soda is b'chlal not a Chum Medina. Okay.
Couldn't we look at soda the same as just colored water? Really?
I mean, there's a lot more. It's not just tea leaves that have not like by tea. There's no mamashas even that goes into the tea. It's just whatever it is coming off of. I don't think your tea level raises. You can't really see. But if you would take water and take all the other ingredients in soda, there's a lot of sugar goes in there, and there's the coloring, and it's definitely not just colored water. I mean, coffee also, every drink except for milk, I guess, and oil, which are natural, would be colored water. But there's definitely more in coffee than there is in tea.
Mm-hmm. And what about juice?
So juice we'll get to. We'll get to juice in some of these chuvas. So let's say, based on the Rav Moshe, what would you tie now? What would we say with juice? Is that something you'd say? You're not thirsty?
I'm wondering if in Florida, orange juice has a different din than juice in general.
Definitely. I mean, the poskim say in Eretz Yisrael, it's much more of it's more of a thing. Like juice is like a chush of a drink that you might give that to someone. But again, it has to be roiv shtiyasa. We're going to see in the Chuvas Barhagas, how do we define roiv shtiyasa? Right. So the shaila is how often you're drinking it. How common is it? Friends get together, right? I guess maybe you would give them juice. You haven't seen a friend in 2 or 3 years. He comes to your house. A few guys come to your house, you're sitting down to have a drink. What are you going to offer them? Like as a drink. So probably a coffee, a tea, depends on you. Maybe a whiskey. Are you going to offer them orange juice? You might. Maybe. That's debatable. But I think coffee and whiskey and beer are the classic examples of things that you drink because it's a chush of a drink. And soda and orange juice, I think, would be debatable, whether it's a thirst quencher or whether it's a mechubediga drink mitzarat. But we'll see how the place can handle. Okay, so in number 5, the Chuvas Manhagas on the left. So Moshe Shtermach writes as follows: Shamati, I heard that Reb Chaim Oizer was matir to make havdalah al tei maslik, on sweet tea. He also heard al maran ha-grisat on the briskerov. Shehitir lahavdil al tei masuk b'shas chak. So Chaim Oizer made it on tei masuk. There he doesn't say shas chak, but it was shas chak. And the briskerov was matir making havdalah on tea in the shas chak in a difficult situation. They didn't have wine. The tzarich beer. So Moshe Shtermach wonders: Maduan agu kein rak le'inin havdalah v'le'hi tiru k'moiken le'inin kiddush afilu shel shachris. So why are all these shmuas that we're hearing all about havdalah? It sounds like Chaim Oizer and the Briskerov would not endorse making even kiddush by day on tea, on sweet tea. Only the havdalah. Why is that? So he goes on to make this fundamental distinction where he says that the foundation of the chiv of kiddush is on wine. Zachreu al hayayin is the lashon that Chazal used for kiddush al hakois. So zachreu al hayayin, so from the beginning of the institution of kiddush, it was done al hayayin. Says the Moshe Sternbach, umnam b'havdalah eikar mitzvah yayin dafka. When it comes to Havdalah itself, and the original enactment, the obligation of Havdalah, had no shaykhis to any drink. Shemei karev deal b'tfil avad. The use of a bracha staf lamed gimel. More bracha says that originally Havdalah was just a daven, and then I think once wine became more accessible, the Gemara says they made it on wine. But the Yesod Takana of Havdalah had no shaykhis to wine to begin with. Then they were masakin al hakois on the wine. So there it's different. There, together, since the connection between the wine and Havdalah is less than wine and Kiddush, so Chazal are more megil with what you can use for Havdalah. So therefore, Moshe Shemach writes that for Kiddush by day, the person has to try to get wine, if not, at least have the grape juice. When it comes to Havdalah, his lashon is it's a mitzvah min ha-movcher to make Havdalah on wine dafka. But listen to this. She'ein yain matzri lefana, which means you finished your wine by the Shabbos day meal. Your second Shabbos, through the Shabbos, you finish the wine. So, okay, you might say you can run out to the Winn-Dixie maybe to get wine, or you could maybe go to your neighbor's house. Like, how far do you have to go to get wine if you don't have wine or grape juice in the house for Havdalah? So Moshe Shlomo writes, She'ein yain matzri lefana, af al tei oy kofi hamukubel bedina mavdil v'idei shevon. You can make Havdalah on tea and coffee. According to Moshe Shlomo, tea and coffee are pasher chamer medina, not like Rav Moshe. It could be like the Aruch HaShulchan, because the Aruch HaShulchan's issue was, like you said before, that it wasn't a common drink. Rav Moshe had an issue with tea that it's just colored water. But Rav Moshe Sternbach is not bothered by that. And he says if you don't have in your house, this could be practical. You ran out of wine, and there's no grape juice left in the house. One can make Havdalah on tea or coffee. That's what he says. Then he writes this interesting thing, and we're not going to translate part of it because it's a
Rabbi, is it hot tea and hot coffee or cold tea and cold coffee?
That's a very good question. The only adjective he has here by the tea is that it's sweet tea. I'm not even sure why it has to be sweet tea. We discussed it a little bit last week. Maybe the sugar gives it chashivas. I would imagine it would have to be in the form that you would serve it to someone. So the Maisa, an iced coffee is a chashuv drink, right? So a cold black coffee. Okay, you're raising an interesting point. I mean, like, how particular are we? Does it have to be served in the manner that you're mechaber? Again, you're not going to give a guest a cold black coffee. You'll give him an iced coffee. So I would think it would have to be given in a way that is chashuv. But to give him a cold tea, unless it's an iced tea, right? An iced tea maybe, but a cold tea, I don't think that would be. It has to be in the chashuv way. That's what I would think. But it's a good question.
Do you use a kiddush cup?
With a kiddush cup, yeah, that holds zervis. I mean, you can use this too, this kind of cup too. That doesn't be a kiddush cup, but it's a koshel bracha. So the truth is, there's no reason not to. I mean, there's no reason to not use a kiddush cup just because I'm making Havdalah on coffee or tea. So, I mean, the only real cup we have is that's a permanent cup.
The reason I ask is because you mentioned the value of having it be in the way in which you have it. That's why I asked. And the normal way of serving a Chomer Medina is not in a kiddush cup. But,
I mean, metal conducts heat. Right? If you put coffee in a metal cup, in your kiddush cup, you probably burn your hand if it's hot coffee. Yeah, so I mean, as long as the cup, the only hot cup that we find, Rav Moshe writes, and Ibus Moshe, it shouldn't be a chad pami cup. It should be like a plastic cup that you throw out. But and any cup would be fine. Any cup would be, as long as you can hold it. So he finishes off this true by writing, Medina, Bedrum, Africa. At this point, when Moshe Shlomo still lived in South Africa, it says near Deloy Moyo B'Yayin Sarf. It says that whiskey is not Chomer Medina. Why? Only in places where they drink whiskey, hard alcohol every day, like the Magen Avraham writes. It has to be drunk every single day. But here he writes in Johannesburg, where he lived, he says the whiskey is b'yoiger. It's very, very, it's expensive. And you only bring it out and like rak le'itim, only certain times, special occasions. It's not a daily drink. So therefore, it would not be considered to be Chomer Medina. That's what he says. And he says even though the people outside of Johannesburg living in the villages, they get drunk all the time on whiskey, that's not in the city. So he's saying that in the city, they don't drink this every day, even though outside they do. We're going to go after the city as far as defining the frequency of the drink and then whether it can constitute Chomer Medina. So that's an important halach. Because that's what he writes. That's the chiluk between Havdalah and Kiddush by day. So very practical nafmina, as we said, you don't have wine in your house, and it's Motzei Shabbos, according to Moshe Sternbach, in that situation, you can make Havdalah on tea or coffee. In the next tshuva, in the box on the right, so he quotes the Rambam that says that if it's roiv yena, if the majority of the drink is whatever that drink is, that's Chamer Medina. Says Rabbi Schreck, near on his diet, it appears to me. There's definitely times in Chazal when they drank wine and they drank beer, it was date beer, before the meal, during the meal, after the meal. Remember the Mars and Brachas, the 6th paragraph, the Maisa, where the guests would come into the hall and they'd be drinking then, they'd wash one hand and they drink, and then they come into the meal and they drink. They're drinking 2 or 3 or 4 times in the whole meal process. And that was derech shtiyos. But bismanenu hashtiya hakavua hi, coffee and tea. The kavua drink that we have now, the daily kavua chashuva drink that a person will have with any sort of chashuva meal or with his breakfast or a stam he'll drink, it's coffee and tea. Like wine was in their times. And therefore it's called Chamer Medina. He writes, we're not used to drinking beer the same way as they drank it back then. Therefore, he writes, it's better to make havdalah on tea or coffee. So now he's taking tea and coffee and putting it mamish on a pedestal. He's saying the Spitz Chamer Medina, the best, the Kulei Alma, is coffee and tea. That's the best. And if you want to avoid Rabbi Feinstein not agreeing with you, so then it's coffee. You want to go to Kulei Alma, coffee is the best Chamer Medina. That's the drink that's drunk every single day. Then he goes on to bring a quote from another Brisker Rav that says you definitely need to have a drink that's alcoholic content. And he says that it's not true. The shmua is not true. He quotes his brother-in-law, of David Soloveitchik, his brother-in-law said, as the Brisker Rav's son, that Le'esad Tzarech, his father would tell them to make havdalah on tea or coffee. The Brisker Rav was not concerned that tea is only colored water, and the Brisker Rav felt that at least in Eretz Yisrael in those times already, it was Chamer Medina because it was drunk every single day, both tea and coffee. So he writes in the end, in the parentheses, that there are some places, I don't understand so much. There are some places that they make kiddush Shabbos day on whiskey. And he writes, even drinking revius is not going to help in our countries. This is not the main drink today. There's only one place where whiskey, where vodka is still the main drink. Borussia Usvivaseya. In Russia, you Mistami saying whiskey and vodka, that's mamish water. It's like water. And therefore, from the frequency. And therefore, it's Chamer Medina. But he says, we don't drink whiskey like we drink coffee. So we have to understand, when Chazal say roiv shtiyos, and the majority of their drinking is X, what that means. So and he quotes that Gemara Brachas in case of Archim. The matzah of the meals back then was that wine was mamish, an integral part of every single meal. So the truth is, tea and coffee are not really an integral part of every single meal, but they're drank every single day, as opposed to whiskey. So therefore, we're coming out from Moshe Sternbach that if you don't have access to wine, tea and coffee is the next best thing. That's what he says. Okay, but it's only if you don't have access to wine. The next tshuva is that of Rav Vosner. And it's on the same topic. The Shoel wrote to him that people are making Kiddush Shabbos morning on Sharmashkim. And the Shulchan Aruch paskins, we can only use Chamer Medina when there's no wine. That's the Mechaber writes, it's the Rashbam and the Kuf Zayin Pesachim, that if there's no wine available, so then you go after the next best drink, whiskey, beer, whatever it might be, but if there's wine available, how could you make Kiddush on anything else? So Rav Vosner writes, I also had this kasha, why people do this. I never had a good answer. And then he wants to suggest an answer. And he says, I'll pay you to a mishas b'kama duchta, b'makom d'shishchiach yayin, ha'yaseh stam shtiyosem. Says Rav Vosner as follows. He says, why do the Gemaras say, the Rishonim say, that when there's wine available, you can't make Kiddush and Havdalah on Chamer Medina. But when there's no wine available, you can. So the Pashup shot is, if you have wine available, that's your number one choice. Wine is inherently chashuv, that's your number one choice. Rav Vosner suggests that maybe it's that back then, if wine was available, that's what they would drink. The only time it's going to be practical that there'll be another drink that'll be the drink of choice is only when there's no wine available. So we'd say in yeshivas, we'd say, is it a simon or a siva? right? That which the Mechaber says, if there's wine available, then you cannot use Chomer Medina. If there's no wine available, then yes, you can use Chomer Medina. Is that a siba? Which means, is that inherently true that only if there's no wine, then you can use Chomer Medina, but if there is wine, you can't? Or is that a siman? Which means, is that an indication that when wine is available, of course, back then they're going to drink wine. That's the number one drink. And it's only going to be nogeya, it's only going to be relevant, whiskey and beer and coffee, if there's no wine. Who in the right mind would drink a whiskey over wine? But that was the Metzias back then, says Rav Vosner. But today, where even if you have wine, people choose whiskey, people choose beer over that. So then, as a limud schus, he writes, you can use Chomer Medina even if wine is available. So that was the Gemara said, we saw the Gemara last week, that I forgot who it was, the Amora would not make Havdalah because he didn't give them wine. That's because wine was the drink of choice. But if we have a Metzias today, even if we have wine, still the Sharmash and the other drinks are the drinks of choice. So then you can make Kiddush Shabbos Tein Havdalah Chavchila on them. That's what he writes. But it's only a limud schutz. He writes, Zehanir lo ani yuzdaiti, it appears to me like this, derech limud schutz. Only as a limud schutz. We saw last week the Be'er Halacha brings a Rambam that's mashma like that. The Rambam says that it's irrelevant whether you have it or not wine. If the main drink is whiskey, is beer, so then you can make Havdalah and make Kiddush Shabbos Day on that. So that's what he writes in his tshuva. And then in number 8, he follows it up with a later tshuva, where he says that he only meant if you don't have wine in your house. Right? This svara of making Kiddush and Havdalah on the whiskey is only if you don't have wine in your house. But if you have wine in your house, so then you can't. And then he says, which pretty much echoes what the Mishnah Berurah says, he says, Omnam, this is very relevant to us. If the reason you don't want to drink wine is because today the Mizgeh Teva are like our constitution, right? Our matzav is that we don't like wine as much. If you prefer the whiskey, then the lechatchila, he says, you can make it on the whiskey. If you prefer the beer, if you prefer the coffee, you can argue. Then it's the lechatchila. So we're coming out tachlis at this point. We have a Mishnah Berurah, and we have a Rav Vosner saying, if you like whiskey better than wine, if you like beer better than wine, you can make it lechatchila, Shabbos Day Kiddush, and Havdalah. Again, don't forget the catch. It has to be revius, and one has to drink at least the right revius. But then it's the lechatchila. The Aruch HaShulchan is not
so not a stira.
What?
Are the Rav Vosner tshuvas here not a stira?
A stira to what? To himself?
Yeah.
How so?
Meaning, in the first he's saying that it's just it's just limud schus, and then afterwards he's saying, but if it's preferred, then if it's more chaviv, then it's okay.
So I think that's the distinction, and the Mishmar is the same thing. Mishmar writes, we saw before, he says beer, okay, whatever, but mitzvah and mufra use wine. But whiskey, if it's chaviv, that's the chatchila. So we have a concept here. Now I'm not sure how the poskim sees in the Gemaras, but they seem to be saying that when you have wine available, you should not use Chomer Medina, right? Unless you like it better. If it's chaviv, if the Chomer Medina is chaviv to you, then even if wine is available, you can lechatchila use the Chomer Medina. That's what Mishnah Berurah said in Reish Ayin Beis and Sivkat and Lamed. Mishnah Berurah writes, "Im chaviv lo yain sarf yochel kadash alav b'yom lechatchila." The Medina Seinu shehu Chomer Medina. You can use Chomer Medina lechatchila even if you have wine, as long as it's chaviv. So if you're the Shabbos Day Kiddush and whatever, you don't want to walk across them to get the wine, but you like your kedem, your Rashi Kal, your Rashi like better than the whiskey. You should walk across the room and get the yain Kal. But if you like whiskey better and you're able to drink your Roiv Revius, says the Mishnah Berurah, says Rav Vosner, lechatchila. It's lechatchila.
What I don't understand is the that limud schus for those who are makel in this Indian. It seems like those people who are makel in this would not be doing it because they don't want to cross the room, or they're in some kind of shas or chak. The people who are doing this l'chora, it's because it's chaver to them, right? So I'm not sure I understand if the response to this shoel is to understand the minhag olam, where all these people are doing kiddush with achila seemingly on wine. Then what's the need for this limud schus along the way? It seems like the mitzias is chavivus.
So listen, we're applying Hollywood and Tavshin Pei to this trip was written by Eretz Yisrael, actually written with CERN in Switzerland. I'm not sure which year, but you're pointing out that the mitzias today is that those people who are making kiddush Shabbos Day and Havdalah on whiskey, it's because they love whiskey and they love vodka. So you're right, meaning it doesn't sound like he's writing to that oil. But the truth is, it's irrelevant to what his psak is. He's saying that if you're making kiddush on whiskey because you go to a kiddush, that's what they offer you, but you like wine better. That seemed to have been the stam yid that he was writing about back then. So if today it's different, then it's not going to impact Allah. The point is that I know myself, I like wine better than whiskey. So if I end up in a kiddush and they're going to offer me to make kiddush Shabbos Day on a revius of whiskey, so I shouldn't do that. But if someone likes whiskey better, and Yosef is saying that that's the majority of people who are making kiddush on whiskey, they like it better. So if that's the case, then he would say it's the chatchila, as with the Mishnah Berurah. But the Aruch HaShulchan doesn't like any of these svaras. If the wine is available, so you should make it on wine. So you have the Aruch HaShulchan always, which would be a reason, to make it on wine. And then you have the Moshe Sternbach saying that we have this Magen Avraham. We have this Magen Avraham saying it has to be a daily drink. It has to be a daily drink. Now, I'm not clear on that gather. I guarantee you there are Yidden every day in Hollywood, Florida drinking whiskey. I guarantee you. As like a choshev drink, whether you're having a business meeting or stam, maybe a little shot at dinner. I don't know how people are. But definitely on Shabbos. And throughout the week, I would imagine, what does the Magen Avraham mean? It's a daily drink. Like everyone, zikr coffee and tea or more, right? Orange juice and maybe soda. If we're going to go with those who say that it's a drink that you're mechabed someone with, not for thirst. Those are definitely, man is drunk every single day, right? Whiskey, is it drunk every single day? Yeah, it is. But by how many people? It means, but by the majority of people, I don't think the majority of Yidden in any place are drinking whiskey every single day. I don't think so. Coffee, yes. Tea probably also. But I think whiskey's it's saved a little bit more for special occasions, like what Moshe Sternbach said was the Metzias in Johannesburg. So, so you're going to have that suffix also with whiskey. Is it Chomer Din? Right? Moshe Sternbach said in Johannesburg, at least when you live there, it's not Chomer Din. It's not drunk every single day. It's for special occasions. It's expensive and it's for special occasions. So there is a suffix in that, I think. Whether that's considered Chomer Din. But definitely tea and coffee. Tea and coffee for sure are. So we'll finish off with this very interesting correspondence between Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky and Rabbi Yashiv. There are parts that are not relevant directly to this topic, but it's just interesting to see their interaction with each other and to see Rabbi Yashiv, his approach to halacha. There's a couple of chashuv yisayis here. So in number 9, if you look on the left side, not in the box. So the question essentially is about, Chaim Kanievsky writes to his father-in-law about, do you make Havdalah when Tisha B'Av falls out on Sunday? It's either like we had last year, it was a Shabbos pushed off, or if it actually falls out on Sunday, I think it was pushed off last year. It was definitely on Sunday. So do you make Havdalah? A person who's a chayla, a person who's sick, and the doctor said he has to eat, so does he make Havdalah before he eats? That was the question. So Chaim Kanievsky writes that I wanted to ask Mari Chami here at Shlita, Zatzal now, if what I'm writing here is correct, because many things I hear in your name, that it's afterwards, I clarify that it's not true. There are many things said of Yashiv's name that weren't true, so the son-in-law is writing a letter to his father-in-law if the following is correct. So he wanted to say of Chaim Kanievsky that you should not make Havdalah. A chayla who's eating on Tisha B'Av, Motzoi Shabbos Sunday, should not make Havdalah. And he quotes in the Sefer Zecher Simcha, and the Sefer Tzafnas Paneach, which is the Rogatchover, who both say not to make Havdalah. And he says also, it's near to him that since the Chazon Ish paskin that today we don't have Chama Medina, very relevant for us, right? Chazon Ish said there's no Chama Medina today. I don't know why he said that, but there's no Chama Medina, and you really should not be drinking wine on Tisha B'Av. So therefore, it's better not to make Havdalah. That was Reb Chaim Kanievsky's argument. He found it in 2 svarim not to make Havdalah, since the only option is wine, according to the Chazon Ish. There's no Chama, you can't make it on milk or tea or coffee, according to the Chazon Ish. And to drink wine is not appropriate on Tisha B'Av. Therefore, also, we never heard of ketanim, of 12-year-olds and 11-year-old girls who are before Bar Bas Mitzvah, who are eating on Tisha B'Av. We never heard of them making Havdalah. And mitzvah the mitzvah of chinuch, they should be making Havdalah, lo yishamanu. Therefore, I don't think they should make Havdalah. And is that correct? That's the question that he asked. So answers Rabbi Yosef as follows. He says, first of all, the Sefer you quoted, Zeicher Simcha, I never heard of it. There's the Tzofnas Paneach, I don't have that in front of me. I don't have the Sefer. But I do have a Birkei Yosef who says to make Havdalah, that a person should make Havdalah. And he goes on to say, he goes on to bring, on the next page, on page 4, he brings Svaras to say that, he quotes a Rabban, which I didn't bring down, that also would seem to say that one should make Havdalah. He says, as far as Reb Chaim Kanievsky had a concern that a chayla who has to eat on Tisha B'Av should only eat what he needs to eat, not to be a chayla. But he doesn't need to drink wine. He doesn't need the Havdalah, so he shouldn't make the Havdalah. So Yosef writes that a choyle on Tisha B'Av, once we pass he's a choyle, so then there's no fast. He's not obligated, he's not bound by the fast. Once we pass that he is a choyle, so then he eats whatever he wants. He quotes an amazing Avnei Nezer that says, he was a Yid, who a doctor poskim that he couldn't fast the whole day. He couldn't fast the entire Tisha B'Av. He can only fast until like midday. So the Avnei Nezer said, don't fast at all. I mean, once you can't fast the whole day because it's not healthy, so then you're part from the tinus. Once you're part from the tinus, this is not Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is different. Once you're part from the tinus on Tisha B'Av and the other tinusim, then you're not in it. So eat. Okay, there's an Indian in not eating and being merry. It's Tisha B'Av, Churban Abayis, but mitzad hilchos tinus, a choyle who can't fast the entire time, there's no Indian in fasting a little bit. There's no Indian
even until fasting until chatzos or anything like that?
There's no Indian. Once a person, there's an Indian, if a person, a muberes, a woman who's expecting or she's nursing and she's not sure she's going to feel, so we tell her, listen, fast, right? But if you see yourself getting weak, eat. But that's because they're chayiv in the tinus in the beginning. And then they become a choyle in the middle. But if I know that it's dangerous to fast more than half a day, there is no Indian of fasting. There's no obligation. There's no obligation, mitzad, the tinus, to fast part of the day. It could be there is an Indian. Again, there's an idea of being mishtatif in the tsar of Klal Yisrael. So that's why my mother-in-law on Yom Kippur, right, the Abram of kids in Yom Kippur in shul would have chicken schnitzel, the undergarments, they would have meat. It's a Yom Tov. Yom Kippur is a Yom Tov. So when she sent the kids to shul on Yom Kippur, it was with flesh, and they were eating their Gvaldi Yom Tov Sudas. Masha Enken, as opposed to the other Tanaisim, so it's because of Tsar of Klal Yisrael, you want to be mishtatif with Klal Yisrael. So it could be this Indian fasting out that. But mitzad, his obligation, being part of the tinus, is not.
But even Yom Kippur, though, even though it is a Yom Tov, there's an Indian of Inui, right? The pasuk says the Inui eshnasos nechem. So if that's the case,
it is potter, and there's no mitzvah of chinuch. There is a mitzvah of tinus shots. When the kid's a little bit older, he should try to fast as a hachana. But a 6-year-old kid, a 7-year-old kid, there's no Indian in having them be. Only chiyuv would be al chinuch. The Indian is being the shkat of tsar. The tsar of Klal Yisrael. Churban Abayis is the tsar. Asar B'Tevis, the other Tanesim, some Gedalia, they're all tsaris, except for Tainus Esther. That's not a tsar. Interesting. But the other Tanesim, besides Tainus Esther, it's all out of a tsar, so you mishtarta for the tsar of Klal Yisrael. And Yom Kippur, it's Gavaldiga Simcha day. It's a wonderful day. Without that, we wouldn't be here today. There's a din of being ma'ana yourself, but there's no Indian in being ma'ana with Klal Yisrael. That inu is not a negative inu. It's a positive. But just to get to the end of this, I want to make a sikkum. So he writes that the minig is, or Yosef writes, the minig is someone who the fast is difficult for him, or for medical reasons he can't fast. He should make, he can't drink wine. He makes havdalah on beer or other drinks that are Chamer Medina. And he based on the Beralach, the Rambam, that even if you have wine, still the other drinks are considered Chamer Medina. And therefore, and he says, wine today, anyway, we only really use wine for Kiddush and Havdalah. We don't really drink wine that much. So he's basically saying the svaras of the other poskim that whiskey and beer have become a Chamer Medina. This is not like Rav Moshe Sternberg, right? Rav Yosef is writing that whiskey and beer are Chamer Medina. So then Rav Chaim Kanevsky writes back to him that I understood your letter, that Mori Chami, that Rav Yosef was not matir making Havdalah and Chamer Medina. I thought Rav Yosef was, but Rav Chaim Kanevsky says no. He understood from the letter that he was not matir making a Chamer Medina according to our minig. That's al pi the Chazon Ish, only to make Havdalah on wine. Because now he writes the reason of the Chazon Ish. Because the Chazon Ish said that in Eretz Yisrael there is no Chamer Medina. There is no drink that took the place of wine back then. I mean, the Chazon Ish sounds like Moshe Sternbach was B'chav the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish seemed to be saying that in the times of the Gemara, a Chamer Medina is a drink that you drink like they drank wine. The beginning of the meal, the middle of the meal, the end of the meal, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day you're drinking it. Zok the Chazon Ish, there is no Chamer Medina today. There's nothing that we drink like that. So there's no beer and whiskey have no shaykhs to Chamer Medina according to the Chazon Ish. He even held tea and coffee don't. It sounds like, because that's not like part and parcel of your meal. So the Chazon Ish should only use wine. Then Reb Chaim Kanevsky writes to Yosef's point beforehand. The Amar She'ulai, the Chazon Ish said, Ulai mitz tapuzim u'chamer Medina. Maybe orange juice is. That is a daily drink, I guess. That is a common drink. But l'maisa gam al zeloi hiski. So Yosef, you become the Chazon Ish. The closest drink to chamer Medina, at least in Eretz Yisrael in the 1960s, was orange juice. Not tea, not coffee, not whiskey, not beer. Orange juice. But still, he wasn't masking to that. But Sivan, he always commanded to make Havdalah on wine. So therefore, again, he understood the Rav Yosef to be saying not to make Havdalah on Motzei Shabbos Tisha B'Av. So Rav Yosef writes back to him, this is the last shuvah, he writes back to him that the Grizmi Brisk was matter making Havdalah on wine, on Tisha B'Av. And he says, but others say not to. Mikol Makam, grape juice you could be makel. So it sounds like for the shaila of making Havdalah on Tisha B'Av that falls down on Sunday, the Rabbi Yosef held to make it lechatchila on grape juice, if not on wine. But what's relevant to us is the Chazon Ish's understanding of Chamer Medina. So he seemed to say there isn't today any Chamer Medina, and therefore it's also it gets thrown into the equation. So the bottom line over here, the bottom line is that those who are making Kiddush Shabbos Day, those who are making Havdalah on whiskey and on beer have what to be samech on. Rav Yosef is saying that it's considered Chamer Medina, according to the minig at least, right? The Mishnah Berurah is saying it's considered Chamer Medina. That being said, Moshe Sternberg will probably tell you that's Russia, right? So there is a question on whiskey and beer if they're Chamer Medina. According to Moshe Sternberg, they're not, because it's not, we don't drink it every single day. According to the Aruch HaShulchan, they're not, because we don't drink with the frequency that Chamer Medina requires. Then you have tea and coffee. So tea and coffee seem to be the next best option for Chamer Medina. So if a person's doing it, they've got to be Semechan. You have a Mishnah Berurah L'maisa, you have a Rav Vosner, that if it's Chaviv, it's the Chatchila. But as far as Lani is Daiti, L'Chatchila Dike Yid, if you have wine there, so the L'maisa is an Aruch HaShulchan that says it's not happy with it, right? Rav Moshe Sternberg is not happy with it. It's a Magen Avraham that says you drink it every single day. And I don't think we can say with certainty that it's mamish drunk with the frequency that the Magen Avraham will require Chamer Medina. So we definitely have a Chazon Ish and Aruch HaShulchan to be concerned with, and Rav Moshe Sternberg, that would say it's not lechatchila, and I'm a big Aruch HaShulchan person. So for me, that's enough. Once I have an Aruch HaShulchan saying not to do something, that's enough for me to try not to. But if one is in a hard spot, if it's a Motzei Shabbos and you're out of wine and grape juice, you could definitely make it, I would say coffee. The number one contender for Chama Medina would be coffee. That's the drink that's drunk the most, and it's for covered. So halach l'maisa, I would taina, if you have wine available, kiddush should be on wine. If someone's making it on whiskey, don't throw tomatoes at them. Unless they're drinking less than a revius, then maybe, a separate shot, maybe a different share, throw tomatoes at them, different share. But if they're drinking a revius of whiskey, yesh amilismoich for sure, and what to rely on, l'chatchila yid will make kiddush Shabbos morning and havdalah on wine if they have it. If they don't have it, then a person that I would suggest making it on coffee. If that's not available, one could definitely rely on the poskim to make it on whiskey and beer. Any questions?
Yeah, for a type, someone who's a diabetic, but not seriously, he's trying to stay away from all the sugars. So again, coffee with Splenda or tea with Splenda, let's say, or plain diet soda, things like that. So he's trying to avoid all the other drinks that are Chamer de Medina, according to some. So would that make more sense? He can't have because he doesn't want to drink grape juice or wine all the time. But Friday night he will because of the kiddush.
Right. So I would say that again, soda is a shaila. If that's a thirst quencher, that's or a mekubah they could drink. But coffee and tea, I think coffee is the best. Coffee would be the best, the most undisputed. Chama Medina, and tea would be number two. So I would say coffee and tea would be
would be the best way to go for Abdullah and for Kiddush Shabbos morning. Okay.
Yes. Anyone else?
You're giving a new interesting definition here according to the Magen Avraham for Chama Medina. I always thought Chama Medina was supposed to be just like a chashuva drink that you would serve a guest, something of that sort. But you're saying now that it's the frequency in which it's drunk, like a daily drink, right?
Right. And to the extent that it appears that, so the Chazon Ish is saying it has to be with the same frequency as wine back then. The other place would sound like just the most frequent. We don't really need, the same. But yeah, the frequency definitely plays a role in Chama Medina.
Mm-hmm. But is that the only definition, or is that in combination with also it being a chashuva drink?
So it's a combination. It has to be drunk every single day. It has to be, as Moshe says, it has to be a drink that you offer someone not just to quench the thirst. It's a drink that's offered because it's chashuv. If you can answer no thank you because I'm not thirsty, then that's not called Chama Medina. It's a combination. It's good to define it. It has to be drunk with a daily frequency, every single day, and it has to be a drink that you drink not for any bodily need, just because it's a chashuv drink.
So that's a funny category. It seems like that's a very hard quality to fit. It's something that's drunk daily, but that's not drunk because you're thirsty.
Well, coffee, wine. That was definitely the season of wine back then.
Mm-hmm.
Coffee also probably is like that. Again, it's not like their wine, which was like regimented into the Suda, beginning, middle, end. But it definitely is, mamish part of our life. It's a coveted drink that everyone drinks only in coffee houses, right? We also have bars for beer, I guess, but by more coffee houses. Starbucks and all these things popped up, just coffee.
Yeah, for some people, it seems like it became an American custom, at least, that at the end of a meal, you offer people coffee. Would you like a coffee after the meal?
Right, a coffee or tea.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, shkoyach everyone.
Thank you, Shkoyach. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.